Hello everyone in the Axie community. Today it's a different kind of video and we are exploring things we haven't explored before. Everyone knows that Axie Infinity is the most famous NFT game out there, and it's taking the NFT world by a storm, but there is something we don't talk much about in the space, which is the Ronin ecosystem, and that's why I wanted to do this video and talk a bit more about it. What do I mean by Ronin ecosystem? I think Ronin ecosystem and DeFi is something we don't talk about, and we in this video we want to talk about tokenomics. We want to talk about the Ron token, which is coming very soon, and Decentralized Exchange DEX is what is being hinted. Liquidity mining, staking, and the entire ecosystem, and a little bit of game theory around it. And this is what we want to cover. This is not a lot of YouTubers or people cover, so right, like we thought we'll do something different. So without further ado, we have a Axie community member with us called Josh Deere. He made a very interesting thread on the Ron token, and he went and searched around what this is and what it could be, and we speculate about tokenomics. We speculate about some SLP AXS prices, and we talk about staking. We talk about how the Ron token will be distributed, and also liquidity mining, and and some more things, right? Like, it's a fun episode. So let's get into it. Let's bring in Josh. Hi Josh, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I saw your thread about Axie Infinity, Ronin, and you did a lot of investigative work. So before we get into that, like, why don't you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, so hi, my name's Josh. Crypto was definitely very interesting. I got into it around 2014, actually, as out of college graduate, having first job, looking for ways to kind of invest money and kind of build wealth throughout my career. In 2014, it was just Coinbase. Opened an account, bought some Bitcoin. Wasn't too many things you can buy at the time, and honestly, did not go down the rabbit hole at that point. It was something I put in there as kind of a side investment, see what it does. It seems like it could be pretty interesting technology, but yeah, didn't get too much into it until around 2017. That's when it got back into headlines and everything. You started seeing all these ICOs and people starting to build out. There were more cryptocurrencies by then, and the industry just started to explode from what I could see from back in 2014. So that's when I definitely dove down the rabbit hole, tried to understand how Bitcoin worked, how blockchain technology worked, what Ethereum was doing. Got interested in some of these ICOs. Also set up my own miners and everything. Had my own Bitcoin miner going. Built my own GPU miners and everything. Had them running in the my townhome at the time. And then we kind of entered this crypto ice age kind of after that for a few more years, and had my miners going the whole time. So they've been going the past 3.5, almost 4 years, I think, at this point. Mining away in my basement now. But had some just life happened and everything. Didn't get to follow crypto the whole time, besides having the miners going, and then enter this DeFi explosion and everything and development. So having seen a lot of projects proposed, a lot of great ideas and innovation out in 2017, coming back to the space and everything, seeing, hey, people actually followed through. They've actually built a lot of the stuff and it actually runs. So seeing that just made my mind explode. It was crazy. I instantly jumped back in, looked at what everything was going on, and at that point had missed DeFi summer, but it was kind of all these other protocols were launching, kind of side chains and everything were starting to take off. And that's when I dove right back into it and found a real good fit within DeFi and kind of understanding and diving into the mechanics of it. Having a chemical engineering background, I was very accustomed to doing math, making spreadsheets to try to analyze all this type of stuff. Um, and it seems like there was just a ton of information coming out from Twitter, combined with all these different protocols launching, that there were a lot of great opportunities to either liquidity farm or jump on a new chain or all these types of stuff.
That's awesome. How did you? That's a very interesting story. How did you find about Axie Infinity?
Yeah, so Axie got into Axie around May, and this was definitely something that I was not looking out for to start with everything. I played games throughout my entire life. Played Warcraft 3 all the way back to Reign of Chaos, the Frozen Throne. Played World of Warcraft for a very long time. Was very active in the PV, PvP, got Gladiator a couple seasons and everything. Um, and so gaming was always something that I enjoyed doing. It was something I could uh, basically had a shrinking time pool to do as life progressed and everything. But seeing some of these first blockchain games and everything, and seeing the Ronin sidechain launch, being able to scale and actually build out and run a game on a blockchain was just like mind blowing to me. Combined with like kind of like the Pokemon aspect and everything, also played that back in the day. It kind of just the play to earn kind of just clicked for me at that point. I'll be honest, back when CryptoKitties launched, it wasn't something that I was super interested in. I'm not really an artistic person. I have zero artistic skills. So there's that, but also um it's not like I have a lot of art on my walls or stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
this is just a print in the background and everything that I got. Um and so it's not a space that I inherently understand or was comfortable in. But gaming was something I have been doing my entire life. And everything just kind of made sense for the next evolution of gaming. Having grown up going to like Best Buy, buying games, to downloading off of like AOL and everything, um, to the free to play model and mobile game explosion and everything. Um, it just kind of makes sense as the next way and next revolution for gaming, to where gamers now own their assets. They can monetize them, move them off platforms, combine them however they want to. Um, it just made sense. And so dove deep into Axie and really enjoy it and the community.
That's awesome. So let's dive into the main question, right? Like we wanted to talk about this token called Ron, right? So before we get into that, I'll just give some context to people who are watching and who might not be that familiar with crypto and DeFi as well. So basically, from what I understand, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you can add on to it. Ron is basically a token which will be used in the Ronin blockchain. So if you're playing Axie Infinity, it's on a Ethereum side chain called Ronin. And to do anything on Ronin, you need some kind of token or something to do the transactions, right? And that's where if you've seen in your wallet, any wallet, you can see, right, like 100 ron 100 free transactions every day, and it uses something called ron, right? Like, so that is what we are talking about. It's way more than that, and Josh has gone and explored a bit more than what I have to say. So how would you define ron to extremely non DeFi person, Josh?
Yeah, so Ron is similar to Ethereum, BNB, Avalanche, Matic for Polygon. It's kind of the token that you use to settle transactions inherently on these different chains. And so whenever you interact on Ethereum or interact on Binance or Polygon, you have to pay your gas fees and everything. That's kind of the price of block space. And Ron is is that for Ronin. So it's very interesting because in most cases the token's out and then they may launch a blockchain or something like that. But for Axie, they've really held off on releasing it, and we're able to basically just provide free transactions for the most part. You get your 100 free a day and everything, and really haven't had a need for it quite yet, just because there aren't that many applications on the Ronin blockchain. Even though there's a lot of people playing and everything, there just aren't that many applications aside from trading, breeding Axies and everything. Whereas all these other ecosystems, you have multiple DEXs, NFT platforms, and everything. But yeah, to simplify, Rana is just how you pay for gas on a chain.
Okay, so basically any transaction we have to do is basically breed an Axie, send an Axie, buy an Axie. We are assuming Ron will be used, right? Currently, you have 100 free transactions. That is just a replacement of Ron. But like, am I right? Right? Like that, all these transactions, you will require some kind of Ron token to be used.
Correct, and that's the assumption I'm going under. I should say that I am not part of the Axie Infinity team. This is just kind of looking at
Yeah,
the blockchain
we're just
and how it
exploring. Yeah,
works.
yeah.
Yeah, and seeing how other blockchain works. So it is definitely the case where other chains need this to prevent bots, to prevent all this other on-chain
Mm,
activity
mm,
going. Because of the approach that Axie Infinity has or Sky Mavis has taken, there just aren't that many things to do right now on the Ronin blockchain, and so it's just not 100% full. And people can't just go make their own smart contract and start doing
mm.
whatever they want to do. Um, and so because of this, the usage is just low at the moment. And so it's very easy to do that 100 free transactions a day
Mm.
and everything. However, once I mean, eventually this space is going to grow. There are talks of like the SDKs on the roadmap, a DEX, all this other stuff. Once you start building out more and more applications, usage gets higher and higher. And then eventually you reach a point where block space needs to have a monetary value. There needs to
Mm.
be calls basically. So
Mm.
you can start ordering blocks. Um, yeah, it's just kind of how prioritization starts to
Okay.
work within a blockchain.
Okay, so basically, like, what does this mean is, to sum it up, like, if you want to use any kind, or if you want to do any kind of transaction, and that if that transaction needs to be processed, be it buying an Axie, breeding an Axie, using the DEX. DEX, what is DEX? It's a decentralized exchange. So, like on Ronin, we can swap through AXS, ETH, SLP, right? Like you can just take SLP and change it into wETH, wrapped ETH, and go buy an Axie, right? Like this is exactly what a lot of people have been waiting for. And how will this happen? This will probably happen. Your transactions will be paid through Ron. So this is what we know, what we are assuming, right? Like we know nothing, right? Like we could completely be wrong here. This is our best guess.
Hmm.
So that's where we are at. So we have seen, see, all our accounts have almost no RON, right? Like they it's like still it's just a, like, a replacement, right? Like the 100 transaction, 100 free transaction, but we don't really own RON. But what you did is, like, you went to the Ronin chain, you went to the and you browsed a lot of transaction and browsed a lot of wallets. And what did you find out? Are there some wallets which have Ron in them?
Yeah, so you can definitely see first off that it exists. It's out there. It's already minted. It's not like this is something that they're just going to make when it launches. This is a token that exists on the Ronin chain. The deployer contract has like 99.99% of it, and there's roughly 1 billion that were created pretty much when the Ronin chain launched. Um, And so you can start to see actually when you go into accounts, I believe, and the accounts are actually ordered by how much RON they have. And so you can see that there are, I think it was like 20, 30-ish accounts that have at least like over 1 RON. And then there are a bunch of accounts that have a very, very small fraction of it. And so doing some digging and everything, you can see validators, they have over 100 RON and everything. There are some other accounts that have some of it, such as the breeding contracts. So when you actually send the breeds and everything to form a new Axie egg, you send the transaction through and the contract executes it. Well, that contract executes tons and tons of breeds. Actually, I track breeding, so right now it's around like 50,000 new Axies a day. And so even though they have like,
Wow.
I think around like 8 or 9 breeding contracts, obviously that's not enough if you gave them 100 free transactions a day.
Wow.
So because, and they also probably don't use the free RPC and everything to route transactions, they have some RON to send those transactions and have them be executed on the Ronin chain. So start to dig into it and see some of this, interesting stuff between the breeding contracts, seeing validators have RON, and then even more interesting, seeing some what I think are like exchanges and everything, like Binance, possibly I think it's Ramp, that to do some automation tools and everything. I believe they have some RON also to execute transactions.
Very interesting. So what just to sum it up, right? Like, so exchanges like Binance or Ramp network, which is like the fiat gateway for Axie Infinity. So anytime you swipe your card to buy ETH or AXS on Ronin, you're using Ramp. So just to give people context, these guys also have some RON. So like, they can process some kind of transaction on the Ronin mainnet. And what I am also guessing is you have SLP and AXS and wETH in and out from Binance to Ronin. So I think those contracts or those addresses also need some kind of RON to function, right? Like, so that's why they might have. And it's very interesting that you pointed out there are 6, 7 breeding contracts. I didn't know that at all. And they have some RON as well. So did you dig like, any of the team members having some RON or something of that sort? I'm just asking.
Yeah, I did not do that digging to see if a address lined up to a name or something like that. No rough numbers, but yeah, did not look up any names behind it.
Cool. So let's just discuss, right? Let's assume what's going to happen when the DEX launches, right? Like, this is my theory. You will probably also have a theory, right? You will have yield farming going on. That's very DeFi thing. Like, to sum it up, like, if you like, what do we do on the DEX? We use a decentralized exchange and swap between stable coins, ETH, SLP, and AXS. This is what I'm assuming will be on a DEX. And to do these transactions, you need certain kind of liquidity, right? Like, if I want to buy AXS, but no one is selling AXS, that means the entire thing doesn't make sense, right? Like, so people like, let's say Josh, me, or even YGG, they will be taking their AXS, SLP, ETH and putting it in a contract, right? And we will be providing liquidity on both sides. That means you can swap Ethereum and SLP. You can swap like exactly how it happens in Uniswap and SushiSwap. So for us to do that, there will be some kind of incentive, right? Like, if you're staking your AXS, you have 127% return. That's the incentive. Why will I remove my AXS with such high returns and provide liquidity? I assume that there will be a battle for like you will get Ron for providing this liquidity, and the APRs when we're starting out will be crazy, uh because there's so much thing you can do with your SLP. You can breed with SLP, you can convert it into AXS and stake it. So why would you want to provide liquidity? So this is my idea. Like, what do you think? What are your thoughts? I think this is the how Ron will be distributed.
It's very possible. I think something, yeah, very similar along the lines. Whenever
Mm.
you see a new DEX, and you've seen a lot of them as new side chains have popped up, there's been no shortage of, I mean, Avalanche is a big one, but Polygon during the summer. Um, to get people onto their platform and providing liquidity, so you have very deep liquidity pools to do these exchanges, which is important. There's usually always liquidity mining incentives. So on top of getting the transaction or swap fees for the pool, you also, yeah, get some bonus and everything. And that's just kind of the mechanism within, that's the DeFi kind of mentality right now with how to get large liquidity pools so that swaps moving AXS to SLP or to ETH is just really efficient. You need deep pools to do that so that people can make large trades. And yeah, incentives are the way to do it. So I definitely see that as the way the Ronin DEX would work. Whether it's
Yeah.
AXS or RON, yeah, it'll be something.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. And what do you think? How else do you think people can earn Ron? Like, I'm just thinking, right? Like, this might be one way. Could it be winners of certain tournament get some Ron, or I'm not sure, right? I'm more thinking on the lines of just DeFi side will be like more Ron, right? Like if you're staking, if you're yield farming, if you're uh, doing something, you'll end up getting Ron. What are your thoughts? Any other way?
Yeah, it's definitely possible and everything.
Mm.
I feel like for Axie, they may want to stick to AXS more, but who knows? I can definitely see it though for the DEX and trying to decentralize stuff. Also, just give
Mm.
people RON so you can start accumulating it for your transactions. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah, the sky's the limit.
talking about Sky, let's not forget, right? Like Sky Mavis is a separate entity which controls, the
Mhm.
Ronin, and like one of the game is Axie Infinity, right? Like so, Axie Infinity is quite important. AX is quite important in the Axie ecosystem. But if you're thinking there will be more games, there will be other third-party developers coming in, they might not require AXS to do things. So that's where, having Ron as a macro uh, ecosystem play makes sense, right? Like we are very much used to Axie Infinity, so having AXS just makes sense, right? Like, but I think it's a Ron is a Sky Mavis token. AXS and SLP are Axie Infinity specific token. So
Yes, I definitely think that Ron, that's where I think Ron would have a really good fit is incentivizing further game development down the road onto the Ronin chain to get new players on and everything. I'm sure, yeah, Axie will be enough draw, but if they ever needed it, it is, I think, another lever that it just adds to the Sky Mavis Axie Infinity toolkit to pull.
awesome. So you wrote some interesting points about the DEX and arbitrage opportunity, right? Like can you explain what do you mean, right? Like how this will how do there is a maintenance of the prices, and what are arbitrage opportunities which will happen?
Yes, I'll try to keep it very simple and do my best to explain this because this is a little complex. If you look at my tweet thread, you can see I actually posted some links of arbitrage transactions, kind of what they look like. But put very simply, it's where you buy something in one market and sell it in another market. And between those two markets, you're buying and selling and trying to exit in the same asset, but the prices are different in those two markets, and you're able to take advantage of that and hopefully make a profit and everything. One of them, I showed one where someone was buying something from Sushi Swap and selling it on the 0x protocol, and they were basically able to double their ETH. It was kind of amazing, but that's a very most aren't like that. Most of them are you're making small amounts and everything, but it's essentially if your bot's set up right, and essentially a zero risk thing. It executes everything in one transaction. It's a complex transaction, but it does it all in one, and you end up with just more of whatever it is, AXS, ETH, or whatever token. And so this is just how actually DEXs kind of actually function. And you kind of need these arbitrageurs to be there and be active on your DEX to stabilize prices across pools. DEXs are just computer code. The Ethereum blockchain doesn't know what the price of Ethereum is inherently. You need stuff like price oracles and other ways to get information onto the blockchain so that people know what to exchange in and everything. And it gets even more complex when you start doing like AXS to ETH, because we're used to thinking about the price of these things in our native currency, whether that's USD or whatever your country's currency is in. But when you start doing these, it's like, I don't know, 100, I'm just making up numbers, like 100 AXS to 1 ETH and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You start thinking in much different currency conversions that are very difficult to wrap your head around sometimes. But those pools inherently don't know what the price of how much AXS you should get for an ETH. So that's where the market determines it. That's where you and I and other folks buying and selling, interact with it. We look at what price we're getting. We look at kind of what it should be on Binance or Coinbase, and we say, hey, this is a good price, or hey, it's not a good price. Maybe I should wait. And then we interact with, we swap our tokens and everything. For DEXs, you're quoted in a way, so you know how much you're going to get more or less. But to balance all those out, you need arbitrageurs. If it gets too much out of whack or out of sync, that's where arbitrageurs come in. They see that opportunity and they say, hey, maybe there's a play here where I can make a trade and profit off of this. And in profiting off of it, they do balance out the price. So it comes back to where it should be. And so that's where bots on Ethereum, on Polygon, all these DEXs and everything, they actually play a role in making sure the prices are roughly where they should be. And as a result, they get paid for that. They get to make a profit and everything.
Very cool. So your bots are not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like they're actually helping your arbitrage bots are not a bad thing. Arbitrage bots are not a bad thing, and they're helping your ecosystem stabilize prices for people who just want to come and not get wrecked on prices, basically, right? So that's interesting. So let's talk a bit about the DEX, right? Like, what are your thoughts? When do you think it's coming, and how do you personally, how do you think it will change the ecosystem? And then maybe I think you might have done some calculation, like what people could do. I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the biggest things in a long time for Axie and everything, because it is going to make stuff so much easier for so many people. Binance has already started to do that with having their everything running on theirs, so its transaction fees are much lower. People can move in and out of it. Actually, I was just looking at the other day, for like literally all of August and maybe July, Axie Ronin Bridge was like the number, it was in the top like 5 for like gas guzzlers for Ethereum. Looking at it the other day, it's down to like the 22nd and everything.
Which is amazing.
So Binance has had a huge impact in people using it and reducing gas fees. So the DEX is going to do basically what the Binance what Binance is doing right now, but it's going to make the marketplace and everything else, Axies and everything, much more liquid. It's like to another degree and everything. In some places you can't, like in the US. I can look at this stuff, but I can't. I have to use Binance US and everything. which doesn't have this. I can't take advantage of those low transaction fees and everything that it offers.
Got it.
Um, but everything can get a lot more liquid. There's 2 point something billion staked in AXS. When you look at some of the just what's out there for Axies, whether it be land, mystics, floor Axies, and everything, it's just a fraction of that. It's be much easier if people want to profit take into one of those assets. Um, just swap, exchange, everything just becomes more liquid, as you would say. The markets just become more efficient. It's easier to move back and forth than having to, even if you have to use Binance, you would have to whatever, deposit your AXS or SLP, do the transaction to ETH, and then withdraw from Binance back to your Ronin wallet to buy whatever it is. So the DEX will just eliminate that step. It'll make stuff a lot smoother and open up liquidity and just make everything so much more easier to use.
Cool. So I want to ask you, so I can just speculate, maybe you have some mathematical angle to this. What do you think happens with the Axie prices? Because yeah, let me give you a little bit context. Now my scholars are gonna take SM, lot of other scholars as well, right? They're gonna take the SLP, right? They're gonna convert it into ETH, and like every month, little by little, they're going to buy Axies, right? Like, so what happens to the entire scholarship ecosystem? Because earlier it's been extremely hard, right? Like if my scholar had to convert it into ETH, their SLP, oh my God, right? Using a bridge, going to Uniswap, transacting, that means half of their money is just lost in transaction fees. Now that's not the case, right? Like we can do everything at almost zero cost. So what will happen with the entire scholarship program? Do we see more scholars graduating faster? What happens to the prices of Axies? Because, like, there's so much liquidity. Do they go down? Do they go up? Because, like, a lot of more people want to buy, right? So what is your understanding on these?
Yeah, so I would definitely speculate that the ease of moving and exchanging and just everything being more liquid, it would give people definitely the option to graduate, buy their own teams and everything as scholars. It would just make life easier for them because before trying to move across that bridge and back on, right now with NFTs and gas being super high on Ethereum all the time, that's really tough if you're farming SLP and being part of scholarships and everything every month. So it'll just be a lot easier for people to buy their own teams, to transact in the ecosystem without having to use exchanges or bridges and everything. So I would definitely think that the demand for some of these cheaper Axies and people to graduate would definitely happen.
Go up, right? Like, so we are assuming, speculating that the prices may also go up like not forever, right? Like when it happens, right? Like that's when what we're looking at, right? Because there will be a stable period later on. Very cool. Okay, quick question, right? Like this is all speculation, right? Like no financial advice or anything. What do you think happens with the prices of SLP AXs? Because there's suddenly so much liquidity with when DEX launches, right? Like what do you think happens?
Yeah, so this is interesting. Yeah, and this definitely enters in the whole theoretical portion of it. But obviously, to create liquidity pools, people have to deposit liquidity. You have to deposit your SLP, AXS, ETH, whatever it is, in a pair in a pool. And so when it's in those pairs or pools and everything, that is essentially kind of off the market more or less. So it just further takes out more tokens out of circulation. We already kind of saw what that basically did when staking launched. Basically, a huge portion of AXS is now locked in the staking contracts. Pretty much people were just buying off exchanges, bridging over to Ronin and depositing there. And the exchanges decentralized exchanges just had fewer and
running
less of
thread.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. So right now, over 50% of AXS is on the Ronin chain. That's just a huge jump. I think it's like over 18 million AXS. There's only I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's somewhere around like 60 or 70 million in circulation currently. Um, there's 270 million, I believe, that was deployed, but it's admitted over a long period of time. So that's just a huge chunk taken. And when you take stuff out of circulation, um,
Hmm.
not only is there that demand, but there's just less of it for people to buy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that
mean,
has the yeah.
correct. Like, so it's basic supply and demand, right? We
Hmm.
are killing the supply, so guess what happens. But
Hmm.
again, right, like no financial advice. We're just all trying to learn things here and speculate things. Very interesting.
Hmm.
Now, I want to ask you what happens. I mean, this is not price, right? Like I'm just talking. I just want to hear your thoughts about it. AXS staking, right? Like wouldn't it be like a very interesting thing for the team, because like people are staking AXS getting 130 150% returns when DEX launches. People like the team Sky Mavis team would want people to move their AXS out of the staking contract and move it to liquidity farming, right? Like that's an interesting problem, right? Like so they have to incentivize both ways uh, to see what happens. And when you remove AXS out of this contract, the staking contract, the APY goes even higher, right?
Hmm.
Like so, what do you think about that?
No, I think you're right. There needs to be incentives to, that's what drives everything,
Yeah,
whether it's
yeah,
arbitrageurs,
yeah.
people depositing liquidity, and putting their assets into these things. Um, there needs to be economic incentives to do that, to
Mhm.
get the liquidity pools the size that you want them to be. Um, so yeah, there would need to be greater incentives to get it out of the staking,
Yeah.
because staking's, you also, when you deposit it in pools, you can experience impermanent loss, which is
Yes.
also kind of a complex thing, that will encourage, before you deposit
Yeah.
anything into a liquidity pool, really start to dive into how a DEX works. Stuff like impermanent loss can impact you.
Mm.
Um, because these are complex little details and everything, that can definitely impact how much you're making. Um,
Yeah.
aside from just being attracted to it from a really
ROI
high
perspective.
APR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like the impermanent loss can be higher than the APR or the
Yep.
APY as well. Right. Like that's interesting. So I think that's we'll just end it here. Is there anything else we missed about Ron or the DEXs, or anything you would like to talk about the Axie tokenomics?
No, I mean, for the most part, I think we covered all of it. I mean, I'm excited as ever for where the Axie universe is going between the decks. I mean, that's definitely where I feel more comfortable in. I love the game, but I just have so few hours in the day to spend playing the actual game itself. I wish I had more, because I'm kind of competitive when I play these types of games. But DeFi is kind of where I've really found my fit
Mm.
in the past, and then in the current crypto ecosystem, as being comfortable in it. So I'm looking forward not only to participating, but also trying to educate, because I think
Awesome.
there's a lot of it, a lot of education that needs to go on with crypto. Even apart from scams and all the
Mm.
other malicious stuff I've
Mm.
seen throughout the years, it's just really crazy, and really tough to hear some of the stories,
Mm.
when people give away their seed phrase,
Mm.
or get hacked or scammed or social engineered out of stuff.
Mm.
It's just really difficult and tough hearing those stories. So definitely want to try to educate as much as I can, with actually onboarding people in huge masses that have never interacted with blockchain or cryptocurrencies before. So that's really where I'm going to try to find my fit.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we do here as well. And like, I'm sure like, we can always come back and explore things when they launch, right? Like let's do like a follow-up episode on like what
Hmm.
things are, because like it's fun, right? Like because not a lot of DeFi native people in the Axie ecosystem, right? Like if you realized all the people who participated in DeFi summer or early NFTs, they don't even like Axie Infinity. So all the DeFi native, NFT native people, like they don't even understand Axie Infinity. That's what I think. And like now Axie Infinity is a DeFi play, right? And it will probably bring in more than uh, current DeFi users into DeFi, right? Like this is the
Hmm.
easiest way to get into DeFi without even realizing. So like let's do this again in future. And like I'm very excited to create crypto native content on Axie, because I'm not the greatest player. I don't know what cards to use exactly, but like this is something we're comfortable with.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Look forward to seeing where it goes, and yeah, try to make some predictions. And we'll see what happens.
Awesome. I'll link to your Twitter handle and all the links you have mentioned today, and go and follow Josh, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.